Looking for all the latest tips, tricks, updates of what's going on in the recruiting industry, check out the Digital Recruiter Sunday night newsletter. I am not here to blow up your inbox. I don't have enough time to create an email every single day. I once a week send you impactful, a big thing that I've learned this week or realized from working with hundreds of recruiters, owning an agency myself. I'm in the trenches every day like you are, and I'm sharing everything that I'm seeing every Sunday, from content, from automation, from how to get better clients, how to find candidates quicker, how to grow your team, how to hire people, everything in between. The link is in the comments. Sign up today, or you can go to my LinkedIn profile, Clark Wilcox. It's the first link on my featured section. You can sign up there. It's all free. So you get all the tips, everything that you need, free in your inbox every Sunday night. Sign up today. Welcome back. Another episode, Digital Recruiter Podcast. Got a great guest today. You guys are going to learn a lot, especially if you've kind of only been a direct hire recruiter. You've ever wondered, what is contract? What is staffing? What is contract to hire? This episode is for you. I have the expert on the backend operations, on everything staffing for recruiters. He helps, recruiters say if you left Aerotech or, Randstad and you want to place your own contractors, right? He's the man that you go to payroll all that, to figure out the benefits and the legal and the compliance and all that good stuff. He's helped recruiters really replicate their desk at big firms, but for themselves. It's super cool. And for those, in terms of about being able to sell and contract and all that, we're going to dive into all that. Founder of Agile Partnering, Charles Causey. How are you, man?
I'm great, Clark. I appreciate the invite, man. I'm stoked to be here.
Yeah, it's just super fun. It's our first video call. Like, we've had a bunch of phone calls over the years. Like, been 3.5 years, I think, since we first met, which is super cool. And it's just been awesome. I know I've referred a couple people over to you that have had nothing but good things to say. But why don't you kind of share the audience? Because I gave a decent introduction explanation. Why don't you give us a breakdown of what Agile Partnering does?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, it's always fun to explain at a cocktail party, especially to people that are not even part of the recruiting industry. They have no clue what we do.
There's just you just melt their brains, I'm sure. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So we're a very niche company. At Agile Partnering, we essentially enable for recruiters and staffing companies to make contract placements as easily as they do permanent placements from an operational standpoint. What that means is that, it's really our goal to help them unlock a lot of growth, scale up their company, enjoy a better lifestyle. And the way that we do that is we take care of all the back office and funding obstacles that they face to provide contract staffing as opposed to the permanent. We should probably dive a little bit into the difference between contract and perm, because that really clarifies what it is that we do.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get into that. And a term that gets thrown around, and I'm pretty sure this is what qualifies you, but employer of record, right? So
Correct.
people have heard like EOR and stuff like that. That's right, kind of in that that same arena
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so we provide core employer of record services. We have multiple contract models. Some of those include cash flow or payroll funding, and others do not. But yeah, the heart of what we do is an employer of record service, and that's where the business started, and that's where we are today.
Very nice. Yeah. So to break down the contract, right, you have like your direct hire, which you get the role, you sign the agreement, they go through the interview process, that your candidate starts day one. They're an employee of your client. But in this case, right, they are an employee of, well, technically you, Agile Partner. Where you do all the onboarding, you do all the paperwork, right? The background checks, the everything from once the offer is accepted, you carry the torch, not the client, not the company that's going to be, managing this employee day to day.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, so think of it this way: like, if let's say that you're a permanent placement recruiter right now, and you're doing solely direct hire, either retained search or contingency, however you structure it, and your client comes to you and says, hey Clark, I really want to hire six C++ developers or software engineers or whatever it may be, but I don't want to hire them as my internal team members. We've got a project, we're scaling out a new platform, we need them for 6 months, and I just want you to bill me once a month, and I'll pay you a month or two after that. But I want you to find the talent, and then I want you to be the one that actually engages them. And we don't want to have any risk on this thing. We don't want to deal with any personnel issues. So for you as the recruiter in that situation, that sounds great. You can probably make some money, but now you've got to take care of all the back office stuff, right? Which is onboarding the worker, doing so compliantly, providing them with actually access to timesheet portals. paying the worker, invoicing, dealing with credit risk and cash flow and all those things. So in that scenario, you would be handling that, or you can outsource that back office functionality to a company like Agile.
The which is great. And so like how so then I place these people and because like you've walked me through a bunch of cool different like calculators and like right because state by state's different, taxes are different,
Oh yeah.
bill rates. Like you basically help everyone kind of like through all that kind of figure that out. Um, yeah, I don't know if we want to get into the weeds, if we're ready to get into the weeds and kind of all that yet, but like if I were to kind of get started, it's like, all right, I have this. Like, what does it look like to even like get started
Yeah.
with you guys? Yeah.
So with us, we make it super easy, and like I said, it depends on the contract models, and I don't know how nitty gritty we'll want to get in that, but we literally help companies that don't even have a USA entity get started. So we've got clients from the UK who say, "Hey, we work with so and so company in the USA.
Yeah.
What can you do?" And we can literally sign the staffing agreement with them, place the work, and everything else. All they've got to do is sign a 1.5 page purchase order, and we literally take care of everything else. Um,
Huh.
Contrast that with, let's say that you're getting started as a recruiter and you want to have that staffing agreement with the client. You want to carry a little bit of that risk, not dilute your brand quite so much with so much of Agile's involvement, but you need somebody else to get started. It's pretty quick. We can have you up and running within about a week. You just review an agreement, you sign the agreement. We don't charge you anything until you're actually getting paid, and making money. And we'll handle as much or as little of that back office as you want us to.
I love that. And then I know you always like, you could have everyone under you, and then 'cause this is one of the things that always stood out to me. Like you could like build this up, and eventually, like if you want to take over that yourself, you could, right? If you build
Absolutely.
that up and stuff like that as well, which is always pretty cool because oh well, are they under you forever? It's like right. I don't know if you have that like people transfer over and then maybe they they sell their company or however that works because that was always one of the things in contract. Like your multiplier is a lot bigger, right? Than direct hire because these are long term contracts and people that are on the books for a while. It's more predictable revenue.
Yeah, for sure. I think actually one of the things I think there's two things that you're talking about. One is like long term, how does this play out? And then the other one
Yeah.
is what's the value of it, right? Especially as
Yes.
you start getting into like the value of the contract staffing. So maybe I'll tackle both those things. The first one's really easy. Our whole idea is like we want to build a runway. So we can literally help somebody who's brand new to contract staffing be ready to make placements next week with our full service model, and they can scale up to other models over time. And eventually, if they say, "Hey, we've got 250 contractors, I've got enough cash flow and risk tolerance, I'm going to bring it all in house," they can do that, no problem. So lots of flexibility there. Let's talk though. I think you just mentioned some core, which is super important. Why would you even want to do contract staffing, right? Like
Yes.
if you've got a good permanent business and maybe you've got a couple team members, maybe you're a solopreneur, you've been doing this for a while, you're bringing down some good money. Like, why would you do that? And first thing I would say is I'll never tell anybody they should do it, right? It's all based on your goals. So
Yeah.
very agnostic in that regard. But I will share with you why a lot of recruiters, as they get seasoned, want to do it. And the number one reason would be recurring revenue. Recurring revenue is this sort of magical financial element in business because it's going to provide a few things. Number one, it's going to be a lifestyle improvement. There's a huge difference when you show up at the beginning of the month knowing that you've got an extra 30 grand of gross profit rolling in for the next 4 months, right? Contrast that with a permanent business where your foresight on your revenue is maybe 8 weeks max, right? And with that staffing business, you have a cyclical engine that's generating that recurring revenue. So your lifestyle gets improved, your stress gets reduced in that regard. Another reason that recurring revenue is so important, and again, this is something that you get with a staffing business contracts and that you don't really get with permanent, is it's protection against the recession, right? When the market fluctuates, as we've all seen in the recruiting space, companies are going to stop paying 20% fees real fast to go find talent. Whereas if you have a recurring book of this contractor book, you're not going to have to worry nearly as much. You're going to be able to ride that out. It gives you a lot of resilience. And the third real benefit of the recurring revenue is the actual business valuation. And this is actually can be a lifestyle changing sort of distinction. And it's probably the number one reason that I hear from my clients is it's the number one reason that they finally decide to make contract placements. And it's all about the business sales. So let's say that in 10 years you decide, man, you know what? I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the recruiting show. It's been great. Made a lot of friends, made some good money, but it's time for me to sell. I'm ready to sail from the sunset. If you only have a permanent placement business, you might get a 1, maybe 2x multiple on that EBITDA in most situations. Now there are outliers, but that's generally going to be your number. So if your EBITDA every year, your interest before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, your net income is $1 million a year on that business, you might get paid $1 million to $2 million for it, right? Whereas if you have a contract staffing book of business that's probably 50 or 60% of your income or more, you could end up getting a 3, 4, 5, 7x multiple on your EBITDA. That is the difference between retirement or not retirement.
Yep.
And that's a huge component. So all those things are important. And the last reason I would say is that when you get in the contract staffing model, not only are you getting recurring revenue, you can often also get higher profit per placement. And what I mean by that is if you're making, say, a direct hire placement, and let's say that salary is 200 grand, you're charging 20%, that's $40,000, right? A contract placement that would be comparable to that, you would typically make less money for the first 6 months, but every month after that they're working, you're actually making a total of more than $40,000, just the way the numbers work out. So if you have somebody working on your bench for 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 24 months, you're tripling the amount of profitability for the same amount of recruiting work that you would have done.
Yeah.
So that's a lot, Clark. I'll pause there. Is that helpful and pretty clear?
Super helpful, very clear. We explained it way better than I could, and I've done both. Uh, what are some of the challenges that you see people kind of your clients kind of face? And I know we say, hey, we don't find the clients or find the people, right? You do
Yeah.
everything else. But what are just some of the things that you get in the contract that you like people should be prepared for, and kind of things that can change, and kind of even how they approach, recruiting or just operationally? Because I know you can speak on that side of things.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's a super thoughtful question. So, and you alluded a second ago, the thing that I tell all my clients is, and I don't think anybody on your podcast would disagree with what I'm going to say. The most successful recruiters that I've seen, at least, the most successful staffing entrepreneurs focus on only two things: finding clients and making placements, right? That's the name of the game. It's finding those quality clients that need the service that you provide and fulfilling them with great talent. Everything else is a distraction.
Yeah.
And distraction is the enemy of profitability. It's the enemy of growth. And so it's my company's job to eliminate the distraction. So let's talk about that for a second. And I want to speak sort of objectively right now. I'll describe what the obstacles are, or the hard things that you just asked about. And obviously, like, Agile solves these, but you don't have to use an employee record. You can go tackle these things yourself if you want to. So I'm going to try to speak very objectively here. But when you get a client, number one, you got to sign a staffing agreement with them, which means you got to carry certificates of insurance, and you've got to be able to support that contract with those insurances. And you're going to be managing credit risk. And what credit risk is when your client says they will pay you with monthly net 30 terms, you're going to have to float cash to the worker before you get paid. And if your client doesn't pay you, you just lost a ton of money. And that can be, that's a major deal, right? And so that is one of those sort of obstacles that right off the bat, as soon as you sign that staffing agreement, unlike a permanent agreement, you're taking on credit risk, and you've got to supply business insurances and negotiate that contract. Now you got a question?
I have PTSD from Aerotech days of the time cards on Mondays and collecting those. And hey, Clark, your account with 20 people is like net 30, and they haven't paid in 150 days,
Yeah,
right? And stuff like that. I'm like, what the heck? Like,
yeah.
I did my job. Like, everyone else figured it out. Like, that was the whole thing with the, you take it for granted. It was always like my Monday and Tuesday afternoons. Like, you had to get a dialed in time card process, and all this was pen and paper. This is even 12 years ago was just like pen and paper and everything.
You see, with pen and paper as well. There's no
question. Oh man, and I'm like racing out, collecting time cards, and not going on meetings. Like, it was like the struggle was real. You mentioned like the distractions are it's crazy. So if it is your own thing, you are a small firm, like it's even crazier
Yeah.
to deal with that. And yeah, it like who my we call them CSAs, a customer support associate, like whoever was typically the person like running the time cards or in terms of charging my like quote unquote triangle my clients. Like I took them out to lunch, like I got them stuff, like I had to make sure I was on their good side, like
Yep.
because that was typically the partners that were like that's how he got paid. Because if your time cards weren't in on time or you didn't payroll, your spread, my spread, gross profits, some people call it, like was not going to be reflected on the report on Wednesday, which like
Sure.
I didn't want. I didn't want to tell people like my spreads should be looking at 12K, but it looks like it's 7K because my time cards didn't go through
Yep.
or whatever. So like there's such a domino effect to having that process um, just be messy.
100%. Yeah. So like you sign a staffing agreement, now you're signing up for all that stuff. You got to have insurances to support it. You know the back end credit risk, and then you're going to make your first placement. And that's when that entire domino starts to fall because number one, you got to onboard that worker, which
Yeah.
means you've got to properly classify them. This is a huge compliance issue, right? Independent contractor versus W-2 employee. It's state specific these days. California is going to be different than Alabama, right? You got to classify them correctly and own that risk. Then it's exempt, non-exempt. You got to prepare them for multi-state payroll or for independent contractor on 1099 basis. That's just onboarding paperwork, and then you've got to give them access to a timesheet portal. And then as they submit the timesheets, you've got to make sure they submit. You've got to make sure that your client approves legally. Whoever the employer of record is, whether it's you or a company like Agile, you've got to be responsible to make sure that you get those approvals in on time so you can compliantly pay. Okay. And then as you process the payroll for them simultaneously, you've got to then be invoicing the client accurately on time every single time. We had a situation, this is years ago at this point, but we were switching systems and, there was some glitch and we went for about 3 weeks without invoices actually going out. They were showing up as going out and they had not gone out. Well, that's an 800,000, whatever it was at the time, amount of invoices that didn't go out, and that has issues. So those are just some of the starting things, and then you really get into payroll funding side of it. And then I think maybe I'll break this down a little bit because this is really important. If you have listeners who have not been in the staffing side of it, because this is totally different from perm. Let's just say that you hire a fantastic worker, and her name is, say, Susie Q, and she's going to go work, and she's going to bill out enough every week where you got to pay her $7,000 a week, and you're going to invoice your client $10,000 a week, but you're not going to invoice them until the end of the month, and they're going to pay you net 45. What that means is you will effectively have to pay Susie probably 6 to 8 times minimum before you actually receive cash from the client. And so you're probably now floating $50,000, $60,000. These are just rough numbers. If you get 10 of them, now you're floating $500,000, right? Very quickly. And if your client gets behind on payment, it skyrockets from there. And so there's multiple ways that staffing companies deal with that funding mechanism. And I don't know that we need to go into all those right now, but that's another one of those areas that we solve for our clients.
It's almost just like a no-brainer, right? If you get into the staffing in your small firm, it's like for someone like me, like, yes, please take it over. And that is one of those things. Like, if I ever get to that point where I want to get into staffing again, like you're my first phone call because like you've worked me through some of the models and everything else. I'm like, I'm so bad at paperwork that I would never deal with. And I think that's a lot of producers, right? It's like we call, we make, we can make moves, like we can sign clients and all that. But it's like, the paperwork. It's like, no thanks.
Distraction.
Yeah, it's a distraction. To your point, it's such a benefit, and I've seen it with my own digital recruiter clients. Like some people get up to 15, 17, 20K a week in gross profit right now, and kind of just building that out. I mean, it's such to your point, like just that check hitting like third Friday of every month, right? And just like sweet, like we're rolling.
Real business, yeah.
Yeah,
that's a real business, yeah. 100%. And that can be a life changer. I mean, if you're trying to do that every month in, month out on a permanent basis, but the real inflection point happens when your permanent business starts to become the cherry on top of the cake, right? It's the extra in addition to that recurring revenue stream. And then at that point, you're really, you've got something that's very valuable on your hands at that point, and it feels like it, right? It feels like it because every month you're walking and you've got that recurring revenue. And back to your point about the paperwork, it's funny. Yeah, most successful entrepreneurs are not exactly detail-oriented people, right? That's not the gift. That's why it's a distraction. Unfortunately, in the staffing world, uh, those details cannot be messed up, because if you mess up the timesheet, if you mess up payroll, if you mess up invoicing, you're not going to have a business for very long. So they are administrative details, but these administrative details actually matter.
They matter, yeah, and you just open yourself up to so much liability and all that if you don't do it the right way. That's why it's great that you know a company like yours exists and is around for recruiters. I gotta ask, like, how did you get involved in like the recruiting world this way, like getting Agile going? Like, what was your entrepreneurial journey to kind of get to this point? Because you guys have been around, what, 10 years?
Yeah, yeah, that's about right. Probably 9 years, something like that. And
Yeah.
yeah, we've had some success. It was not easy though, all the way through. And I appreciate the question. I think at a high level, I'd say when I was really young, I knew I wanted to go start a company, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But I had somebody, say, hey, go out, learn how to generate revenue, learn somebody else's bug. So I don't know if it was good advice or bad, but I did it for a while, and I ended up being in the HR space, very sort of in the HR software space, quite a bit, very adjacent to staffing and recruiting. And then I had a couple buddies come to me and say, hey, let's go start a business in the staffing sector. And so I did that, and the long and short of it is that I realized that I really enjoy the back office operations. Call me masochistic, okay?
Yeah.
I get it,
I don't
right?
get it. Yeah.
I know, I know. I really enjoy the back office operations. I was not as strong in the recruiting, but we were also doing the permanent placement. I saw how lumpy the permanent placement revenue was, and I saw how consistent the staffing revenue was, and then I
Yeah.
also saw how much work the back office was. I was like, this is a real pain. Even though I enjoyed it, it was like this is, and it's also a tremendous amount of risk. As I began to see how much cash we were floating for these clients on an unsecured credit basis by default in the staffing vendor agreement. And then I began to see, okay, you know what, there's a real business opportunity here. And from that, we really began to build this out. And we started actually with companies mostly in the UK. We've expanded a lot here in the USA. And yeah, that's sort of history in the making there. But it was really just being down the guts of the business and realizing the back office is a lot of work. I actually really enjoy this. And I'm going to let the people who know how to really find clients and make placements, the hard stuff, like the really important revenue generating stuff, I'm going to support those people.
That's interesting. Yeah, not many people tell me that they enjoy the operation side more, which not surprising coming from you because of given what you guys do.
Yeah,
But it's always, most people I interview, recruiters or owners, agency owners, that are
hate it.
like, yeah, they hate
Terrible.
it, right? And that's why we're doing this, because it gives them,
Yes.
that knowledge. Like, all right, there is hope out there as
Yeah.
someone that can help me. What was just like, I guess, an entrepreneur? Because I get a lot of people, this year, just times for some people it could be rough to get business or get roles and all that. Like, what was kind of the journey the first few years to kind of build up? Like, when did you guys feel like you kind of hit the sweet spot? What were some of the challenges in just even building this as a company?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love it's sort of fun, I guess, having that question asked to me, because I love hearing other people answer that question.
Yeah.
For me, looking back, and this is how I describe it, the journey to people at a cocktail party. I say the first years of business were sort of like flying a sputtering plane with like black smoke coming out of the left wing, like right over the treetops for the first couple of years. Like it didn't crash, we didn't take off, right? We didn't find product market fit right at first. It was just barely like getting there. And then that's when I really began to study the business and understand it. And then we pivoted and we exclusively focused on what we were doing best, where I also felt like there was this opportunity to alleviate this back office obstacle for my peers at that point, right? For other staffing recruiters. And that's where we began to really take flight. But those first couple of years, yeah, man, I mean, full transparency with you and your viewers. I mean, I took a 90% pay cut, if not more, and stuck with that for a while. And, it was tough, but, you know, I guess I've got an entrepreneurial bent, because even through the hardest of the times, I never once really thought I'd rather be doing something else. I mean, I freaking love what I do. Doesn't mean I don't get tired of it sometimes, but I really, really love what I do.
It's so it's so important. I mean, that's a heck of a pay cut, and I know you're a family man and all that stuff. So justifying that sometimes can
Yeah,
be, I'm sure, a little difficult
yeah,
at times in the beginning. But we just highlighted just like that ownership, not just being an entrepreneur, but like just the ownership, the investment of like, I'm going to make this work, and that attitude and that belief, on the recruiting side, you probably don't get this as much on the kind of the funding side, right? You go all in. You can't just like on a whim just start a business like yours, right? It's got to take a little bit more planning than just starting a recruiting agency. But it's interesting. The recruiters are just kind of dive in and be like, oh yeah, maybe I can figure this out, or it's easy, and then like they don't really go all in, and then they wonder why they're not getting results, or they like hire a lead
Yeah.
gen company and like, oh, it didn't work, or this. I'm like, you're not working. Like you're not all in like to making this happen, and like you do have to have a little bit of the burn the ships mentality to make it because there's so many problems and headaches to
Yeah.
work through. It's like you just got to know that going in. But good stuff can wait on the other side. But it's like if you're not willing to do that and go all in and invest in yourself and either training or coaching or the resources, the tools or whatever, like there really isn't a point in doing it.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like it's all right to stay W-2 at times, but I think like yeah, just like that pain. It's easy to see you guys almost 10 years in and be like, you guys must be killing it, right? It's like, yeah, now we're doing all right. Like there's still problems, but
Yeah.
like, check out 2016, 17, 18.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different story, right? The turkey looked a little bit different then than it does this year at Thanksgiving.
It's 100% the truth. I mean, it really is. And there's a great book written by a guy named Henry Cloud, and it's called Necessary Endings, and it's a book on when to know when to quit. And he says something really obvious, which is most people give up too soon, right? They throw in the towel too soon, and I was absolutely committed to not do that. And I mean, we really, it was a strain on my marriage. It was a strain, on me personally, all those things. But I was committed to getting it done, and I had, I'm a value driven guy. There was reasons I wanted to do it. I want to make an impact, and I felt like this good use of my skills. And he says in that book, the time to give up is when you have truly lost all reasonable hope.
Yeah.
Like if I really thought like there's no hope here, it is what it is. But to your point, most entrepreneurs, if you have a decent idea and a decent market that you're going after, there's always reasonable hope. But you have to be willing to gut it out and work really freaking hard
Yeah.
and adapt, the whole way through. And you mentioned the finance a second ago, like the services that we offer now, there's no way we could offer them when we started. We didn't have the IP to do it. We didn't have the capital to do it. It's been
Yeah.
an evolution over time, and we'll continue to evolve. We've got things I wish I could talk about right now that we're rolling out in the next year, some new services for even larger companies, enterprise companies, that I'd love to be able to share with you. But it's just a reflection of constantly listening to customers and adapting and not taking on too much risk, but always continuing to evolve and stick it out. It's more fun now though than it used to be when it was like we're past survival and now it's like
Yeah.
it's fun, right? It's more fun.
Yeah. It's like so you can be strategic and feel like you're getting ahead of the game
Yeah,
and all that versus kind of chasing the tail,
yeah.
if you will. You mentioned you didn't always hone in on kind of like this piece of it, right, with the staffing. Like, what did it kind of? Where did it start as? Like, how did it kind of get it narrowed down?
How
Yeah.
transparent to be here.
Yeah.
So we started out, and I had been on the HR space and
Yeah.
adjacent to recruiting for quite some time, right? But more on the technology side. And when we started out, what I didn't realize in those very early days is that a lot of the workers that we were payrolling for other companies, if I can use that term, because I don't actually use that term anymore now, but that's what we called it back then. Um, these were folks that are misclassified as workers or question mark classified. And I actually ended up consulting with attorneys who used to prosecute for the IRS. And like, I really made the financial investment to really quickly learn the business. And, um, and so when that happened, I realized, well, we're not going to persist in this business. This is way too much risk relative to what we're charging for, and it doesn't feel right. So we pivoted, man. We tried a few things. We did some consulting stuff. We did the recruiting. We did the staffing. We did those things, and we continue to provide some what we call payrolling services at the time, for a year or two, whatever it was. And that's when during that time period I kept aggressively learning and I began to really dial in. I was like, okay, there is a real market here where other recruiting firms, other staffing companies, both abroad and domestically, really need help with the back office, but they're so much better than we are at the actual finding of talent. Um, I'm gonna actually switch our business model altogether. So that was the journey.
It's yeah, it's just it is the iterations and like listening to your market and That's what I pick up, and yeah, I appreciate you being transparent enough. You don't have to give away all the stuff, but of just like that journey of just I'm here like constantly listening to your market, asking them questions, knowing you might not make all the money in the world in the beginning, and there's a lot of power in that just as a business development lesson, and because especially with automation nowadays, everyone's like, "Oh, I can get all these clients off like one or two drip sequences and everything else." I was like, maybe, or you could just start a bunch of conversations and be a little bit more normal,
Yeah,
and your market's going to tell you what they need, and that's going to tell you how to stay ahead of the game and kind of what's going on. And I think people are so reactionary, right, with media and everything else. It's like if you just engage in conversation, and you could try some things out and what digital recruiter looks now is a lot different than it did 3 years ago. Some of the core principles are very much the same, right? But it evolves because I pay attention to how the people in my program, who I work with, like how do they operate, how do they learn, how long does it take them to learn certain things, and then are they an owner, are they a producer, are they both? Like just like paying attention to that helps you understand how this thing's gonna look like in year 4, year 5, year 6, right? And
yep,
like there's a lot of value there, like even if you're in it, right, and take that pay cut and everything else, like I don't know, that's just like what I've learned. Just like 3 years in full time on this thing, it's just
yeah.
the paying attention I did a year or two ago, just getting on the phone, like without even expecting to sell anything, like has built the framework, the foundation to make this a lot easier this year.
Yeah. Do you mind if I ask you a question about that, Clark? I know you're
Yeah,
interviewing me, but I mean, I think a lot of people might agree to that intellectually, but when they're on their own and they know they need to put in some hustle, they need to pick up
yeah.
the phone, make the call, initiate, and they just don't do it. Where do you find that motivation to sort of show up every week and actually create the activity and the buzz, right? Rather than just like letting things coast. What keeps you on point there? Because it's easy, I think, to lose that for all of us.
Yeah, it's a great question because I didn't always have it, and I think what for me it was just I believe so strongly in what this is. As soon as like for me, I saw LinkedIn automation, I saw the power of digital marketing and content marketing, and I saw that I had a knack for both. Plus, I'd already recruiting. It was like kind of like I just looked at like what could I get paid for? Where could I help? And I just threw stuff out there. And I just like we had some proof points. I saw like where it could go, but as an entrepreneur, I was like, I know this works. Like I know automation works. I know content works. If someone says it doesn't work, it just means it's not working for them. So the challenge is to figure out how do people learn, how to do all this. And I think I had to stop comparing myself to other people. So I just didn't care. I didn't care about likes and everything else. I was like, I know this works. I have to get what I know to work out into the market. And like I'm gonna find my people. And now the automation tools and the content that got distribution out there. I just focused on distribution. How could I connect with as many people as I could every day, introduce myself to as many people every day, post every day relevant to the recruiting market, right? Pick that niche. It took me about 4 years to figure out an offer and like my market and everything else.
Yeah.
But like I just talked to them every single day. And I just started conversations like, I know how to do this. What does that cost? It's like, well, at the beginning, I don't know. Or like, what do you need? Right. And I just diagnosing what are the issues? What are the problems? What are the clients that you're trying to get more of? What are the types of candidates that you want more of? And I had to do things to make sure I had a runway, right? I still worked for an agency part time, and that owner knew I was building this thing out. So you have to have a runway. You have to have that, right? If it's a side hustle or whatever else, like make sure you're not scrambling to pay the bills because that allowed me to figure out my market. And you're like, yes, I took out my 401k and all that to make it happen. Like I believed in this. I knew I could do it. I saw other coaches getting to a certain revenue. I saw ones doing it not ethically, and I worked with someone like I paid into some of those programs. I'm like, oh, this is BS. And then I worked with some coaches that were not scams at all, that were amazing. They probably honestly undercharged me. So I was like, okay, I know who I want to be. I know what my values are. I know how I can help. I know the types of clients I don't want to work with, and kept developing those boundaries. That was really important to kind of build my own self esteem. And then I just used the tools. Like I used automation every day. I posted every day. Like I was everything I could control. I just made happen. Like there was no. I made my stamp on the market. I'm putting myself out there, and people are like, "Oh, social media," and I want to post. I'm like, I don't care. Like I don't. I'm not very active on anything else, like posting wise.
Hmm.
But I'm on LinkedIn. My market's there. It makes sense. I'm going to get out in front of them. I'm going to share what I know. and go from there. And I'm just going to never stop doing it. Like
Yeah.
ever. And I'm not gonna. People are like, oh, it takes so long and all that stuff. Well, like just figure it out. Like it took me an hour to make a post in the beginning. I got way better at it. I can do one in a minute now that gets 10, 20, 50 likes, 10,000 impressions. But it took me a while. But it's like I could do that, or I could make a 400 phone cold calls. I hate making cold calls. Who's gonna take my cold call and want coaching? Like no one. Right? And so like I just was honest with like where I was at on the totem pole, and I just worked every day to just show up, to just keep rising, keep rising, keep rising. And I just knew that it would happen, and I stopped trying to get immediate gratification. And it just like went for it. It's just like, yeah, you got to cover your bills, but just like keep going. Like people are always paying attention if you're putting yourself out there. Like I just can't believe how many people are actually noticing
Yeah.
and paying attention. And that's the opportunity we have with the internet. Is distribution has never been easier. So if you have a sound strategy and a sound foundation, you distribute that day in and day out, like you're going to get results.
I love some of what you said there. There's a theme, and you said it the same thing a couple different times in a couple different ways when you start talking about never stop, keep rising, keep rising, keep rising, right? Like just never stop. That to me is just 99% of the game, and it can't be doing the same thing over and over. Rather, it's at least for me, and I think it sounds like for you as well. It's you're taking actions, you're seeing what works, you're adapting, and you take the next action, right? It's like we're constantly learning. I remember one of my mentors when I was about, real young, he said, and it was a little cheesy, but it works. He said, never let your earning exceed your learning for very long. Never let your earning exceed your learning. Like you should always be working really hard to outpace what you're earning with your learning. And if
Yep.
you're ever just earning a lot but you're not learning much, you're coasting at that point.
Yep.
And that always rings in my mind. But that's so I
I like
really
that
resonate.
phrase.
I
Yeah,
resonate with what you just said there. Just like never stop. Keep iterating. Keep trying. Right. Keep putting it out there. Keep the hustle. That's cool.
absolutely. And I'll add one thing because again, you flipped this on me, which is funny. But because I've been reflecting on this, we're 3 years in. Everyone's like, "Oh, you're killing it!" Blah blah blah. It's like life. Life is good, right? Revenues. I have my own problems. Like you solve one problem, you get a bunch of other problems. I have way better problems. I always say, these are problems I prayed about 6 years ago, right?
Yeah.
When I was making $12 an hour and everything else. So but we had a great Q1. My son was born in February. We have a really strong start to Q2. And I don't talk about revenue. I'm not going to give revenue, or I'm
Of
not. I
course.
don't care about talking about that stuff. But I say it because I also lost a ton the first 4 months of this year.
Mhm.
Like with more opportunity, with more wins, are more losses, right? It's the whole Jordan. It's like, yeah, he made more game winners than everyone. He also missed more game winners than everyone else. So it's like I just go and yeah, I can steam about like a sales call not going well or a prospect not signing up that I feel like would really benefit. I don't worry about the people that don't sign up that I don't think should work with me or I don't want to work with. But I do. I get fired up when someone like misinterprets a conversation or like they, whatever. I get some weird DMs now just because I post all the time. And I'm like, what's going on here, right? Or someone doesn't sign up or they push off because they bought some a tech tool they didn't need or they hired someone that I can be more productive with an hour of my week. I can be more productive with than most of these people in 30 hours, right? Just with the systems we have. And I'm like, like what a missed opportunity. Or their business partner doesn't understand like how close they are. Like those things frustrate me, but I move on. I can process it and I move on. It's just like, that's part of the moving forward is knowing like I lose more. I'm not undefeated. Like
Yeah.
I've lost big deals. I've lost small deals that like make no sense. And I'm like, wait, why am I even like doing this? Right. And so those are gonna happen in seasons and phases. And there's so much iteration at times that happens. And just be okay. Like you're not gonna win. And like, it's like not losing, it's learning. Like that does apply. But people are surprised when I tell them like I don't want a close rate above 50%. That means I don't have enough calls or my pricing's too low.
Yeah.
Like, and so people are like, huh, I hear recruiters, oh, I'm at 95% close rate. I'm like, you clearly don't have enough going on or you're undercharging. Right. And so like I
Totally.
gotta be in the game and the wins and losses are gonna play out the way they need to.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's I know you're not necessarily like this. Well, you're kind of in a sales role. I know you're not like in a recruiting role, but and I'm sure you have that, right? You talk to a million people that are like, yeah, I'm thinking about doing this, and
Oh
some
yeah.
come through and some don't, and it is what it is, right? Like you create that awareness, and I know that's been your approach, so which is really cool. Um, I do want to ask though, like, what's
Yeah.
like how many are you allowed to talk about like the most amount of like some like a solo person has, or like the billing, or something like what you've seen, or like anything else in terms of like top perform? I mean, no names or anything like that, obviously, but like top performers that you guys kind of like have seen under Agile, like kind of build even as like a solo person.
Yeah, I would love to, but we can't. I'm
Okay,
the best
okay, I
recruiter.
had to ask,
Yeah,
right?
no, he's
I had
he's
to ask.
he's super
Yeah,
tight-lipped, on these things, but some of them, right?
yeah,
And I will say, one of the most satisfying, exciting things for me. Like, I love our big clients, and that sort of thing. But when there's a real hustler, right, an entrepreneur who starts out from scratch, and maybe they flounder for the first 6 months, but they finally get it, and they take flight, and it's one placement, two placement, five, 15, and now all of a sudden you start seeing that effect. That's real world, like that can happen, and we enable
yeah,
we play I would we play an important role, and we play an important supporting role in helping these folks do that. But those are some of my favorites. I have one guy who not won't name names, but that's exactly what he did. He went out, he started his company, it was permanent only. Then he started layering contracts, having a few years later, sold the business. And then I got probably one of the nicest bottles of wine I've ever had. And it was actually probably the most expensive nice ever. And it was given to me with a really nice personal note afterwards, just to say thanks for the partnership. And like, that was super cool.
yeah.
So yeah, that's fun stuff.
It's game changing.
Yeah.
It really game changing, life changing. To your
Yeah.
point, as you said. So, um, I love it. Anything else that you want to leave the listeners with before we wrap up?
Maybe just encouragement to say, if you're a recruiter and you're only in the permanent hire in the direct hire space, and you want to go a little bit deeper, feel free to reach out to me. Just hit me up on LinkedIn, Charles
Yes.
Causey, Agile Partnering. I've got firm, concrete numbers, both from our own numbers and from industry statistics, where I can work you through the profitability of contract. I can explain how it works in a little bit more detail, and then balls in your court, right? So I love those conversations. No sales pressure or anything. So if you're a permanent placement recruiter and you're thinking about it, let me know. I would also say, if you're a contract staffing recruiter, maybe working for somebody else, but you've thought about running your own business, but in your mind you're thinking, golly, I'm making 150, 250K a year. I've got benefits. I can't go do this on my own. I'm here to tell you that you can, and you can probably more than double your income real quickly if you're a top biller. So I know those stats backwards and forwards, and we can talk about what that could look like. So if you've got a little bit of risk tolerance, you're a really successful person on the contract staffing side, but you're working for somebody else, and you want to be your own boss and get some real freedom long term, give me a shout as well, and I'm happy to talk through it. So that's just an offer for all your listeners.
I love it, and I can verify that. I did that when I didn't even know what Charles was doing. I just had to talk to him, and I was wowed with the models that he gave me and how he walked me through that. I know he's taking care of digital recruiter clients as well. Talk to him. You're going to learn a ton, and you're going to have a bunch of tools in your tool belt to add to kind of have some strategic ideas and vision that you can incorporate into your day to day. To his point, it's totally doable. I can verify that there is no pressure on there, because you got to go make it happen, right? Because you're not getting paid until you get paid as well. So have that conversation, even if you're just curious. You're going to learn a lot. So I will definitely back that up on that. So, dude, I appreciate you coming on, man. I'm glad we did
Man,
this.
this has been
This is
fun.
super
I really
fun.
appreciate it. Yeah, this felt
Yeah.
super fun, and just nice to talk shop. And I really appreciate you sharing some of your story and your journey as well there. It's been
Yeah,
great.
well, thanks for asking. So I appreciate that. So again, connect with Charles. We're gonna have the LinkedIn URL, URL, excuse me, in the episode. If you got value out of this, give us some love. The 5-star rating, whatever you're listening on. You better have gotten value out of this, because this was a ton of great info. And reach out to Charles, connect, set up a call, make it happen, do some discovery, and maybe change your life. If things go well, if you get after it, get some clients, and that's where I can help you if you need it. So
100%.
appreciate you as always, Charles. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and happy hunting until next time.